Answered in Kind Xxv. The architecture of avoidance and the quiet return to sovereignty. Dedicated to Mr. Christian. There is a recognizable choreography that emerges when an interior edifice, once relied upon for coherence, begins to fail. It does not collapse all at once. It whispers first. Microfractures form in certainty. Stress lines appear in narrative. The posture tightens. The voice sharpens. What appears outwardly as conviction is, more often than not, a belief system performing emergency load-bearing labor under duress. Such structures are frequently masked. A mask, especially one fashioned of plaster, can simulate integrity. From a distance, it offers contour, authority, even sanctity. But plaster is not bone. It cannot regenerate, cannot flex beneath pressure, cannot adapt when life insists upon movement. And when the living face beneath it stirs, when contradiction arises, when another stands unarmored and free, the mask cannot evolve. It can only be defended. Defense, in these cases, takes the form of projection. The outward jab is not an ascent. It is a maintenance maneuver, a reflexive attempt to stabilize what is already cracking by striking at whatever appears to threaten its equilibrium. Thus the language hardens. It grows absolutist, punitive, apocalyptic, not because truth demands such ferocity, but because fragility cannot tolerate permeability. What disappears first is curiosity, then forgiveness, then dialogue. Openness becomes intolerable because openness implies porosity, and porosity would allow the pressure inside to meet reality. So the posture calcifies, meaning ossifies. The psyche chooses rigidity over revision because revision feels like annihilation. This is not theology in motion. It is identity under siege. Information avoidance is frequently mistaken for ignorance, but it is more accurately understood as a regulatory strategy. When beliefs are braided tightly with moral worth, communal belonging, and existential safety, contradictory information is not processed as neutral data. It is registered as threat. The nervous system asks quietly but urgently, if this is true, who do I become? What collapses? Where do I belong? When the answer risks exile from certainty, from community, from a self-image carefully curated over years, the mind averts its gaze. Truth is deferred. Inquiry is postponed. Stability is purchased at the cost of adaptability. The trade is subtle but profound. Coherence is preserved, but growth is arrested. In such a state, cognition no longer serves discernment. It serves allegiance. Reason is conscripted to defend identity rather than interrogate reality. Evidence is filtered not by coherence, but by compatibility with the existing scaffold. Thus one may speak fluently of love while imagining exclusion, One may invoke holiness while rehearsing annihilation. The contradiction is not felt because the mask defines the perceptual field. From inside it, these dissonances do not register as inconsistencies, but as virtues. This is not hypocrisy in the casual sense. It is structural blindness. Motivated reasoning is not a failure of intelligence. It is intelligence pressed into the service of foregone conclusions. Indeed, the more articulate the mind, the more refined the rationalizations. Logic is deployed selectively. Texts are mined strategically. Authority is invoked to quiet doubt rather than illuminate it. Correction fails here, not because it lacks merit, but because merit was never the criterion. Preservation was. When the defensive architecture can no longer sustain engagement, the system retreats, not into humility, but into insulation. Conversations migrate into closed circuits. Consensus replaces inquiry. Silence descends, not as peace, but as containment. This is cognitive foreclosure. The premature sealing of inquiry under the banner of certainty. Processing halts. Dissonance is quarantined. What appears as restraint is, in truth, avoidance wearing the costume of resolve. Affective numbing often follows. Emotion dulls. Curiosity atrophies. The person does not feel serene, they feel less. This anesthesia is mistaken for faithfulness, but it is simply survival in a system that cannot metabolize revision. From this soil grows the impulse to control. Control is not born of strength, it is born of unrest. When one has not been taught to govern the inner terrain, fear, ambiguity, vulnerability, the nervous system seeks relief through external regulation. Ordering the world becomes a proxy for ordering the self. Control reduces variables. It promises predictability. It soothes anxiety, briefly. But control never heals. It only postpones encounter. Fear hijacks the amygdala. Discernment vacates the prefrontal sanctum. Nuance collapses. The impulse to dominate feels righteous because it quiets the tremor within. Yet, each act of coercion further distances the self from the very sovereignty it seeks. Against this backdrop, refusal is not cruelty. It is clarity. To refuse the circuit of provocation is to deny reinforcement to a loop that feeds on reaction. Detachment here is not indifference. It is metabolic intelligence. Attention is currency. Where it flows, patterns strengthen. Where it is withheld, patterns starve. Self-control interrupts reflex. Radical responsibility restores authorship. Emotional regulation retrains prediction. Discretion reallocates attention. The brain is not broken, it is loyal. It repeats what once ensured safety, even when the strategy has expired. When offered precise direction, It adapts willingly, always has. Those who are at home in themselves do not require domination. They may set boundaries. They may withdraw, but they do not coerce. Presence alone destabilizes pretense. Freedom exposes insecurity, not by assault, but by contrast. So when you encounter rigidity masquerading as certainty, understand what you are seeing. Not strength, but strain. Not holiness, but fear clothed in absolutes. Not conviction, but the terror of revision. Do not vilify. Do not pursue. Do not feed. Stand sovereign. Remain porous to truth and impermeable to coercion. Let discernment be paramount and restraint your chalice. In time, whether here or beyond, every structure built on avoidance must yield to encounter. And when the mask finally falls, as it always does, the invitation remains unchanged. Not to be condemned, erased, or annihilated, but to return, quietly, gently, back to center. For nothing real is threatened by truth. Nothing essential is lost by release. And the path worth walking has never required clenched teeth or closed fists. Only the courage to remain present and the humility to let what is false dissolve. Rest there. You were never meant to carry the mask home. Praise love and pass the compassion, child of light. God bless your divine presence. The light